Parshat Behaalotcha, the Torah describes at the end the level of the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu, that his prophecy is much greater than all other prophets. All the prophets begin their prophecy with the phrase, Ko Amar Hashem, so does Hashem say. So means like this, but not exactly, precisely this. Only Moshe Rabbeinu prophesies with the phrase, Zeh hadavar asher tivah Hashem. This is the word that Hashem spoke. This is the commandment of Hashem. That's why it says that only Moshe Rabbeinu can give us commandments. Even Mashiach, when he will come, is not a prophet at the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. He cannot make new commandments or take away commandments. It's only Moshe Rabbeinu is at that level of prophecy. Now the Torah describes this unique level in using different phrases. The highest of the phrases, the epitome of the phrases that the Torah uses to describe the level of Moshe Rabbeinu is Peh el Peh adaber bo. That I speak to him mouth to mouth. God is now speaking to Miriam and Aaron that they criticized Moshe Rabbeinu, and God is now telling them that you don't understand, you don't realize the uniqueness and the greatness of the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. And once more he says several things, God speaking to them, and the highest thing he says that you don't know that I speak to him mouth to mouth. Peh el Peh adaber bo. Now that phrase, Peh el Peh adaber bo, I speak to him mouth to mouth, its gematria is 416, which is a multiple of 26. It's 16 times 26, 16 times Hashem's name. But to say it in another way, the same number, is to say that it's 32 times 13. 13 is half of Hashem's name. 13 is the word Echad. When we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, so actually the last phrase, God is one, Hashem is one, is 26 and 13, which is called whole and half. It's a ratio of 2 to 1, which in Kabbalah is called a ratio of whole to a half. Hashem Echad. So Echad, 13, is the half of 26. But the double of 16 is 32. 32 is Lev. Before we receive the Torah, it says, Vayichan Sham Yisrael. And Vayichan, the people of Israel camped in the presence to the east of Mount Sinai. And the only time that the word to camp is stated in the singular is at this time before receiving the Torah. And Chazal say it means Ki ish echad belev echad, that we're there as all together, the whole Jewish people, as one man with one heart, without controversy and machloket between us. And this is the only campsite, it's the only time that the Jewish people are really all together as one person with one heart. So that phrase, one heart, if you take those two words, one heart, lev echad, and multiply the two numbers, 32 times 13, so you also get this 416, which is equivalent to 16 times 26, which is the value of this phrase, Peh el Peh adaber bo, that I speak to Moses mouth to mouth. So what does mouth to mouth have to do with one heart? So apparently it's interdependent, that in order to have this very unique form of communication with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with God, we're going to have to explain more what that means, mouth to mouth. But to reach this level of mouth-to-mouth communication, mouth-to-mouth communication is called in Kabbalah a zivug neshikin. It's a union of kiss, mouth-to-mouth communication. So to reach this level of mouth-to-mouth communication, you have to be one heart with that other soul that you're communicating with mouth-to-mouth. If there is not perfect love between the two, so there's a verse that says that I actually despise kisses that are not coming from consummate love. If there's one heart between two parties, or two two souls, then there can be true mouth-to-mouth communication. So this is the way it's explained, that this geometry, this numerical equivalence and phenomenon, that pe el pe adaber bo, mouth-to-mouth I speak to him, equals 1 times heart, lev pamim echad, which is once more equivalent to 16 times 26. It actually is 2 times the name Yitzchak. Zivug, and the joy of unification, especially of kissing, is called the level of the soul of Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak equals 8 times 26. So this phrase, Pe'al Pe'adaber Bo, is 2 times Yitzchak, the double Yitzchak. So Yitzchak is laughter and joy. It's the joy of this communication, this spiritual kissing intercourse between God and Moshe Rabbeinu. Right, now let's meditate, drop deeper on this phrase, Pe el Pe Adaber Bo. The first 3 words, mouth to mouth, each have 2 letters. Pe el Pe. Pe is written Pe Hey, El is Aleph Lam, and once more Pe Hey, Pe el Pe. So 3 words of 2 letters. 6 letters altogether. The next 2 words, they complete the phrase, are Adaber Bo, I speak with him. That also have 6 letters, but it's not, apparently at first sight, it's not 3 words of 2 letters. It's 1 word Adaber is 4 letters, and then 1 word of 2 letters Bo. But actually, Adaber is 2 syllables, that each syllable has 2 letters. So if it's divided into syllables, you can divide Adaber Bo also in exactly the same way, that it's just like Pe el Pe. That Pe el Pe is 2 letters, and then Adaber is also Aleph Dalet, Bet Reish, and Bet Vav, which is Bo. Now why did we do this? In order to perform a certain type of calculation, which is called an inner multiplication of double letters, that if I take that second phrase, I speak to him, and divide it into this way into Aleph Dalet and Bet Reish and Bet Vav, so the product of Aleph Dalet is 1 times 4 is 4. The product of Bet Reish is 2 times 200 is 400. And the product of Bet Vav is 2 times 6, which is 12. If I add those 3 products together, so most amazingly, I get exactly the same number as the whole phrase altogether, which is 416. Which is, once more, it's 1 heart. It means that it all is all coming from 1-heartedness. They have to be 1 heart, and that something about Moses and his relation to Hashem, that he's 1 heart with Hashem. Just like the whole Jewish people, to receive the Torah of Moses has to be as 1 man with 1 heart. So that's where it's coming from. Since we did this mathematical process on that phrase Adaber Bo, and we reached exactly the same number as the whole phrase together in simple gematria, so since the first 3 words also each have 2 letters, we can do the same thing. We can say Pei, how much is Pei times Hey? 80 times 5. So 80 times 5 is 400. And then I have Aleph Lamed, which is 1 times 30 is 30. And then once more, 80 times 5, which is another 400. So that phrase, doing the same process, is 830. What happens if I add 830 now to 416, which is the same process on the second half of the phrase? So it's 830, and 416 is 1246. 1246 is divisible both by 7, it's a multiple of 7, but also a multiple of 14. It's 14 times 89. But just as we had here, we have different limbs of the body now in this meditation. Because the whole thing begins from mouth to mouth. So there's mouth-to-mouth communication, intercourse between God and Moses. That's the highest level of his prophecy. Let us make a very important point that every Jew, it says in Tanya, has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu inside of it. So all of this is also pertinent to each and every one of us in our own communication with Hashem, to reach this level of Peh El Peh, Adaber Bo. So the first thing we said, we learned from this game of that it depends on having one heart with God. And that one heart should also be able to express itself in the mouth. That what I feel in my heart, that's what I say in my mouth. But now we arrived at this number, which is 14 times 89, but those two numbers are also two different, very important limbs of the body, because 14 is yad, is hand, and 89 is guf, which is body. So I began from mouth to mouth, and then from mouth to mouth I reached one heart, and now I reached even a bigger number, which is hand times body. What can that possibly allude to? Hand is the out-reaching hand. If I just say hand in the singular, I'm primarily referring to that hand which reaches out and does most of the work, which for most people is the right hand. If it's your left hand, that's also called your right hand. The hand that does most of the work and also reaches out to encompass and to embrace other souls and to bring other souls into the body of the Torah and the body of Hashem. Sometimes the word body is called Lishtava Bekufa de Malka, that all of the mitzvot in the Torah are to be drawn, just like you draw water out of a well, to be drawn into the body of God. What does it mean to be drawn into the body of God? It means to become part of the body of the commandments of the Torah, which are referred to as a metaphor, as the limbs of God, so to speak. So this final gematria is saying that the ultimate purpose of Moses' prophecy, why did Hashem give him this prophecy? And what does he want to get out of it? What is his purpose in kissing God? And so by being in a state of communication, intercourse with God, what is it for? It's for this most greatest objective, which is the ability to reach out with those words that I received by the kiss of God. Those very words to reach out and embrace all souls and bring them into the body of the Torah, which is called to be also drawn into the body of God. This is the power of the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu.